السلام عليكم. النهارده عندنا محاضرة عن properties of cardiac muscle. Yes. As we know, we have three types of muscles: cardiac, skeletal, and smooth muscle. They are sharing the general principal functions, but each one have a special feature fit with its function. First property of the cardiac muscle, which is contractility. And we must define what is meant by contraction, because there is a wrong definition of contractility or contraction where we define it as shortening of the muscle. But after this definition, we know there is one type with shortening and the other without shortening. So contractility, it means ability of the muscle fiber to convert chemical form of energy into mechanical form. And so according to this definition, we have two types. First one, which is isotonic contraction. Iso, it means the same. Tonic, tension, the tension inside the muscle more or less is the same. And this is characterized by fiber shorten. Tension does not increase inside the muscle fiber when it is measured by tonometer, yes? And there is work done. Isotonic contraction, character or its feature, fiber gets shorter, tension does not increases, and there is work done, yes? While the other type, which is isometric contraction. Iso, the same. Isometric, the same length, means muscle contract without it changing its length. Isometric contraction, no shortening, no work done. Where is the energy going? In two directions. Tension inside the muscle fiber, too much increase, and there is a lot of heat lost to the outside. Yeah. Cardiac muscle performing these two types of contraction in succession. First, we have an isometric contraction phase where the two sets of valvular cardiac valves are closed, AV valve, semilunar valve, and the muscle fiber undergo contraction. And we call this phase in cardiac cycle isovolumetric or isometric contraction. The ventricle contract without change in its length or in its volume. And this type of contraction utilized for increased pressure inside the ventricle in order to overcome pressure in the aorta or in the pulmonary artery. As the pressure in the ventricle exceeding the pressure in the large vessels, what is happening? Valves open, semilunar valve open, and the blood ejected from the ventricle to the large vessel. And so immediately contraction is changed from isometric form into isotonic form or isotonic contraction, where there is work done, which is pumping blood to these large vessels, and the fiber gets shorter to pump blood to the large vessels. Yes. Also, we have two physiologists, Frank and Starling, observe there is a good relationship between initial length of the fiber and the strength of contraction. Regarding the heart, we modify this definition and we said there is a good relationship or a relationship, positive relationship between end diastolic volume of the ventricle and the strength of contraction. End diastolic volume, this means the volume of the ventricle by the end of diastole. The more the blood in the ventricle in the diastole, the more will be the stretch of the ventricular fiber. And so more end diastolic volume, longer initial length of the muscle fiber get a stronger contraction. And this relationship is not only for cardiac muscle, but also it exists in the skeletal muscle. Frank Starling law, this is the base of what is known as cardiac autoregulation of cardiac pump. But this law states the strength of cardiac contraction is directly proportional to the initial length of its fiber. Here we said instead of the initial length, end diastolic volume. This simple diagram explains the relation between, yes, tension of the muscle, length of the muscle, this is the horizontal, and the other axis, vertical, which is the tension or strength of contraction. The more the initial length, the more the end diastolic volume, the more will be the strength of contraction till limit, within limit. If we get overstretched, what is happening? The strength of contraction get weak due to tear in the muscle fiber. Yes. A second cardiac properties, which is rhythmicity or automaticity, and this could be defined as, yes, ability of the cardiac muscle to beat regularly. This beat means to get a cardiac cycle consisted of systole and systole, and this is repeated regularly. What about its nature? Yes, it is myogenic, means it depends upon the character of the cell membrane in the nodal tissue and in the cardiac muscle. This is what is meant by myogenic. More explanation means nodal tissue, SA node, able to allow leakage of positive ion, mainly calcium and sodium, from outside to the inside, till the difference in the potential get reaching firing level, critical level. They generate an action potential without any need for cardiac impulse. So this what is meant by it is myogenic. And to be explained or to differentiate it between neurogenic rhythmicity as what has happened in the respiratory muscle, diaphragm, external or intercostal muscle. It have a rhythmic contraction, means it able to get contraction and relaxation regularly, but it is neurogenic, means it depends upon its connection with the nervous system. If we separating diaphragm or intercostal muscle from its nerve supply, stop acting. But here in the heart, if we get the heart outside the body, yes, frog heart, rabbit heart, it's still beating for a long time or for a while due to its myogenic nature or myogenic rhythmicity. If we're dividing the heart into different parts, is rhythmicity the same in different cardiac fiber? No, we find there is difference. Yes, SA node showing highest rhythmicity, 105 beat per minute. Yes, followed by AV node, about 45 to 60 beat per minute, and then followed by Purkinje system and the ventricular fiber, about 25 up to 40 beat per minute. This what's known, sometimes we call it idioventricular rhythm, the own rhythm of the ventricle. What this means, is it meaning different part of the heart has a different rate of activity, how the heart act? Yes, it occur. Where? If we're dividing or separating different part of the heart, separating SA node, AV node, atria, ventricle, and so on. But in a normal heart, all of them must obey the highest rhythm, yes, of SA node. Yes, and so we call SA node is a pacemaker of the heart, cardiac pacemaker. Pacemaker of the heart, pace means speed. Naturally, in a normal human, it is SA node. Why? Because it's showing the highest frequency, highest rhythmicity, and the different part of the heart obeying this rhythm. Yes. We can define pacemaker as it is the focus which generate highest frequency of impulses. Sometimes in a pathological situation, we may get other focus in the heart generating by frequency more than SA node, and we call this ectopic pacemaker. So what is meant by an ectopic pacemaker? Any pacemaker other than SA node is called an ectopic pacemaker. Factors affecting cardiac rhythmicity. First one, innervation. Yes, as we know, heart have autonomic supply, double supply, vagus, parasympathetic, and sympathetic supply. Vagus inhibit cardiac rhythmicity, slowing the heart rate, while the sympathetic is stimulating or increasing rhythmicity. Under basal condition, both have what is known as vagal tone and sympathetic tone, but vagal tone taking the upper hand, yes? And so it decreasing the intrinsic heart rate of the heart from 105 down to 70 beat or 72 beat per minute. Intrinsic heart rate could be defined as, yes, heartbeat or cardiac rhythmicity without innervation, without inner nerve, no sympathetic nor parasympathetic. It beat about 105, but in presence of the two, double innervation, heart rate lowered or cardiac rhythmicity lowered to the basal condition 72, 75 beat per minute. Temperature, any change in the body temperature by 1 degree centigrade, changing the body temperature about 15 beat per minute. If it increased, rhythmicity increased. If it decreased, rhythmicity decreased by this ratio. Effect of iron, and the most important one are calcium and potassium. Yes. Calcium, the more the calcium in the body fluid, this will increasing systole on expense of diastole, till at a moment we may get complete systole, or the heart send in what is known as cardiac standstill, systole without diastole, which is a fatal situation. And so this must take in consideration when we inject calcium, whether intravenous, yes, to give it very, very, very slowly. Otherwise, we may get sudden increase in the calcium level and get what is known as calcium rigor, rigidity of the heart due to continuous contraction due to high calcium level. Diastole carrying the reverse effect, increasing time of diastole, and the heart may stop in diastole. Oxygen supply. Oxygen, in complete absence of oxygen, heart stop. Yes, why? Because we have two metabolic pathways. Cardiac muscle carrying its metabolic process through aerobic pathway, and it need for oxygen. No oxygen, there is no energy get out. Yes. According to, or regarding the skeletal muscle can perform contraction in absence of oxygen, and this known as oxygen debt paid later because it goes through, yes, anaerobic metabolic pathway. Excitability change occurring in the cardiac muscle. First, we must define what is meant by excitability. Excitability, it means ability of the cell or the living cell to respond to a stimulus. For each impulse, the muscle or the cell responding by this change. First, phase 1, there is a normal excitability, about 100% excitability. The curve representing duration against excitability. 0, 1, 2, 3, up to 100%, and the duration in a millisecond. Normally at rest, phase 1, we have a normal excitability, 100%. The member receiving the impulse, so it responds, and immediately excitability falling down to 0. Phase 2, which is known as absolute refractory period, where the excitability is 0 and no stimulus can excite or no impulse can excite whatsoever its strength. Absolute refractory period. And then the membrane starts to regain its excitability in a phase known as relative refractory period. Phase 3, yes, some channels start to be open and ready to respond to the new impulses and can give a response. But during this phase, to get a response, a stimulus must be so strong and the response will be subnormal response. Then finally, we're reaching sometime supernormal and subnormal excitability before we're getting back to a normal phase of excitability. Again, phase 1. This is excitability change in general regarding the different phases. But regarding in cardiac muscle, we find a great difference regarding the timing of absolute refractory period. So this is excitability change occurring in skeletal muscle fiber or in a nerve fiber. But in a cardiac muscle fiber, we can get, yes, if we're recording excitability change during cardiac activity or on a cardiac fiber, more or less the same phases. Phase 1, normal excitability. Phase 2, absolute refractory period. Phase 3, relative refractory period. Phase 4, supernormal excitability. But if we compare absolute refractory period in cardiac and skeletal muscle, we get too long absolute refractory period in the cardiac muscle. Its duration about 250 milliseconds, and it's covering the whole systole and early diastole. So cardiac muscle, when it receives another impulse during systole, it doesn't respond, and this impulse passes without effect. Yes, and this is why we call cardiac muscle can't be tetanized. For a muscle to send in a tetanus, it must responding to successive stimuli, and this occurs in skeletal muscle fiber, and it can get a tetanic contraction because the duration of absolute refractory period is too short, while in skeletal muscle, due to long absolute refractory period covering the whole systole and the early diastole, cardiac muscle can't be tetanized. Excitability change during cardiac activity, yes. First phase, absolute refractory period, very long to prevent tetanus of the heart, yes. Second, relative refractory period, and third one, which is supernormal excitability, and finally, we get back again normal excitability. Very good. Regarding conductivity, this means conduction of cardiac impulse in the heart itself. We know the conducting system of the heart as such, impulse generated from SA node and then conducting in this direction from SA node to the AV node through what is known as internodal fiber, 3 internodal fiber, from SA node to the AV node to the AV bundle, going to interventricular septum, where the bundle divided in 2 branches, right and left, descend in the interventricular septum till the apex of the heart, and then reflected back on both sides of the ventricle. Yes, and so conductivity, this is the ability to transmit the cardiac impulse. In this conducting system, is the speed of conduction the same or variable? And if it is variable, where is the highest conductivity and where is the least conductivity? And more important, what about significance of least conduction and significance of high conduction? We find least conduction taking place at AV node. Yes, yes. Here, speed of conduction about 0.04 meter per second. Yes. While the fast conduction occurring at bundle branches and Purkinje fiber. The speed of conduction about 4 meter per second. This means conduction velocity in the bundle branches and the Purkinje fiber 100 times faster than AV node. What is the significance? What is the importance of delay conduction in the AV node and very fast conduction in the bundle branches and the Purkinje fiber? As the impulse reaching AV node, yes, we find the impulse taking longer time, delay in its conduction. And this is for what? To ensure the systole finishing, the atria finishing its systole before the arrival of impulse to the ventricle. Otherwise, we get a moment where, atria doesn't finishing its systole and the ventricle starting its systole. So the delay of A The delay of impulse at the AV node is to give a chance for atria to finishing its story. Other importance or significance, sometimes we get a high rhythm due to any pathological condition in the atria. This high rhythm can be filtered by the delay conduction of the AV node, and the ventricle receive more or less a normal rhythm. Regarding the high speed of conduction in the bundle branches and the Purkinje fiber, yes. This is for what? This is to ensure simultaneous contraction of both ventricle at the same moment or at the same time. For what? To increase pressure inside the ventricle and to overcome pressure, whether in the atria or pressure in the pulmonary artery, and so they must contract simultaneously. Otherwise, if the impulse conducting slowly, what has happened? There is certain region in the ventricle contract, after a few milliseconds, other one, a third one, and so on. We call ventricle contract out of phase. And this doesn't reaching the intraventricular pressure to a high pressure overcome aortic and pulmonary pressure. Good. The speed of conduction in the conducting system, as I said, atrial fiber, speed of conduction about 0.3 to 1 meter per second. AV node and the AV bundle, 0.04 meter per second. Bundle branches, Purkinje fiber, 4 meter per second. Good. AV node, it has slowest conduction velocity, 0.04 meter per second. Yes, what is the significance? The slow conduction in the AV node allow the atria to complete emptying before ventricular systole start. Bundle branch and the Purkinje fiber has the fastest conduction velocity, 100 times that of AV node, 4 meter per second. And the importance of this high speed of conduction, this ensures the simultaneous contraction, means every fiber in the ventricle contract at the same time. All fiber in the ventricle contract at the same time. This ensures simultaneous contraction of all part of the ventricular muscle. Yes. Thank you so much.